Hello and welcome to the Entertainment Biz Show presented by Vouch. I'm your host, Justin Jacobson. Just as a reminder, nothing here is intended as legal advice, as all the information is for educational purposes only. Special thanks to our sponsor, Vouch. Vouch is a digital curated gig marketplace where talent and businesses can hire other pre-approved individuals to streamline talent searches, and where industry dot connectors can earn commissions for making talent referrals. Visit vouch-app.com to learn more about the world's first social utility network where it truly pays to know people. So this week's guests are Rick, the CEO and co-founder of Vouch, and Dimi, the chief business officer and co-founder for the company. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
My pleasure. So to start, Rick, tell us about your previous work experience prior to Vouch.
Sure. So my name is Rick Melucci. Like Justin said, I'm CEO and co-founder with Dimi of Vouch. A little bit of my background: I graduated from Stanford University in 2020 with a bachelor's in symbolic systems. So this is a special little major within Stanford that's a mix of computer science, philosophy, psychology, and linguistics, specifically towards like artificial intelligence. So while I was there, I studied a lot about like graph theory and like how can we use machine learning and AI within like social networks to try to understand how does information spread and how do people actually connect with one another in the future. So that's kind of been a passion of mine for years now. Um, in my junior year, I interned at Facebook for a bit, doing kind of data analytics, data engineering type work. And while that really like lit up the fire in terms of me wanting to work within social networks in the future, I realized that data wasn't really the thing for me. It was a lot of just like black box algorithms. You don't really know what's going on there. You do know, but like how it actually gets to the answers, there's a lot of questions there. A lot of people still don't understand fully. So I preferred building a lot more. And I actually decided to go to Goldman Sachs next for my next internship and then full time after college. So I moved back to New York after Stanford, worked at Goldman for about 3 years, where I was doing full stack development. So think like their product Marquee. It's similar to Marcus, but for hedge funds and like banks and things like that. And just learned a lot about, like managing like a technical team, learning how to build a product up from like 0 to 1. And kind of a lot of those things ended up actually being applied into Vouch once we got started. Same with like the studies that I did. They kind of all came together in the perfect way.
Amazing. So what kind of experiences and learnings did you take from those previous jobs that you're now applying with Vouch?
Yeah, I mean, the whole app that that anyone's tried today is mostly a result of those experiences. Like a lot of that was built out by me and the team that we worked with. Architecting wise, like that was all for the most part done by me. And a lot of those things I really wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't spent that time at Goldman with like some of the mentors that I had. And then other things like mobile, for example, is not something I had done at Goldman, but that was the fun part, right? Like how do you get the like next step from what I understood, building out complex websites to then having them also port over to mobile and everything like that. And as for like the my studies, I mean, a lot of what we do is really kind of based on those original thoughts about like triadic closure, right? Like let's say three people that are friends, two people have friendships, but like the last duo don't know each other. You can make those introductions all the time, and that actually changes the way that a network works quite a bit. So that's kind of at the core of how we built out Vouch.
Interesting. Amazing. So Dimi, what about you? Tell us about some of your prior experience and now how you're able to apply it to Vouch.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dimitar Novakov, like you said, Chief Business Officer and co-founder of Vouch. My prior experience really, so I was a mathematics grad. I didn't really, but academia wasn't really the right fit for me. I just couldn't, sit in textbooks all day and prove out theorems. So I ended up really pivoting to the financial services as, my interest was peaked. I had a concentration in financial mathematics, bounced around a couple of equity research firms, a hedge fund, ultimately landing at a boutique multi-strategy investment fund called Star Mountain Capital. Ended up working there on the investments deck for the better part of 5 years, initially as an intern, and then subsequently as an investments analyst, really helping the fund grow from roughly 300 million in AUM until it got to roughly 3 billion in AUM. Ultimately wanted to, get my chops in more of an operating role thereafter, especially as Rick and I kind of started talking about, hey, like, can Vouch happen? Can this be something that we build in the future and put out in the world. So I pivoted to a strategic finance associate role at Rapid SOS, really kind of spanning the corporate strategy, um, executive, RevOps, BizOps, finance kind of segments in the firm. I used to joke that if there was ever a problem or some kind of fire internally, I was the first call that people made, and I had to figure out how to do it, right? A lot of times, working with different teams and really kind of landing at solutions. But, ultimately all those experiences really kind of led to, me really valuing what Vouch can really do for the world. I think from a practical standpoint, obviously, like understanding how value accretion works within business models, how to manage different teams, how to play with different stakeholders and ensure that everybody within, a grander scheme of a network is satisfied and happy, understanding, M&A, fundraising, back office work. All of that's like essential for a startup. But I think what really happened at the same time is, I saw the practical experience of how small and medium sized businesses impact America at Star Mountain. And then how on the Rapid SOS side, how like mission driven outcomes really should be employed into the world in order to, impact audiences and individuals that often go underserved or in situations sometimes unnoticed. So that kind of passion for both business building and network building alongside kind of really making community impact ultimately got me excited about Vouch because, hey, if we can make truly a referral driven ecosystem and community and network where everybody's kind of aligned as helping one another and can be viewed as true stakeholders in their communities, then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy of, growing together. And that's just exciting in my eyes.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue to, talking about Vouch. So why don't you, tell us about forming it, what is it, and, why you launched it and the initial vision, kind of love to hear kind of the behind the scenes of how it all came to be.
Sure. So, I mean, first, what is Vouch? I mean, you said it in the beginning, but we'll reiterate. Vouch is basically a word of mouth digital introductions marketplace for gigs. So we're trying to solve the problem that everybody asks their network at some point. Hey, does anyone know someone that does blank? And that can be photography, that can be videography, music, whatever it may be. We're really
Right, I
focused.
was with the tour manager yesterday. It's like, hey, I need production assistance. I showed him Vouch, and he, was looking into it, and it just solves problems.
That's amazing. Yeah, so we're really trying to, there's kind of, we'll get into the roles a little bit later, but there's kind of three pieces to it. But really, it's all focused towards like empowering creatives to really connect with better collaborators, earn better, and have more earning opportunities in general, and getting more trusted contacts. So a little bit about the story of how it came to be. Back in like 2018, I believe, I got a very last minute ticket to Coachella, like the day before, right? Like 11 p.m. the day before. I was 8 hours away by car. I had no car. I didn't know how to get there, but I needed to get there. So I wanted to, like, the question came immediately. I wish I could ask everybody here at school, like, is anyone driving down from Stanford that could just drive me down and like we can all carpool? But I didn't have everybody on Facebook, or like people don't, like, Instagram doesn't really push your stories like that, right? So I tried, but to no avail. So then I'll keep the story short of how I got there, but I did end up getting there in the end, and it had to do with like kind of like putting up a request on like a platform that existed. It wasn't introductions based, but it was kind of like Craigslist, and it was definitely a little funky to use, like, but it got me there safe. It got me there for cheap, and that kind of really became the first time that I was like, look, I wish I could just pay for an introduction. I should have been able to pay someone to introduce me and then pay for the gig for driving me also, because I'm willing to. It's that urgent for me, and it's that important that this person doesn't kidnap me or do something to me, right? Like,
Right,
so
there's a respectable person, not just a random Craigslist.
yeah. So basically, that was the first time that thought came up. And then moving back into New York, I make music as a hobby, right? And I had a lot of people in the music industry that were trying to break out as their full-time thing. They had full-time jobs to make money to then support their music. And often people were just asking, like, hey, does anybody know a cover artist? Does anybody know a videographer, photographer, etc.? 12 different people for one release, a mixing engineer, mastering engineer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And basically we'd be making these introductions and problems would come up all the time. Someone wouldn't pay someone after the job was done, or just like someone would get cut
They
out.
weren't happy with the job, right?
Exactly, or people would get cut out of the middlemanning, you know what I mean, and making the introduction work. And everybody was doing it for free. Those intros were being done for free. There were problems that came up that reflected on the vouchers, but they had no control over the situation, and B, no reward for being involved, right? So there was no real reason for people to be being out on a limb to try to help someone else. So we just really, I guess the idea of vouch stemmed from that. There was no real like crypto aspect at first, but like once Dimi and I connected, we started talking about it deeper. We really thought about like how can we use this new technology, which we were both involved in. We didn't mention it in our intros, but we've been in crypto for a couple of years now. We found a way where we could actually make crypto accessible to people that have never really used crypto before and solve this like escrow / payments problem so that everybody would be happy, everybody gets paid out, and it's a net positive for everybody.
So yeah, so why don't we kind of go into that? Like, how is blockchain technology involved in the app? What benefits does it provide?
It really touches a couple of different aspects of what we're building, I would say. The one thing I'll preface it by mentioning is we really focus on abstracting away the technology from the user experience and also ensuring that the technology does not there's no derived volatility from using it, right? The two biggest problems in the world right now with Web3, with blockchain, with crypto is either A, it's inaccessible unless you're an insider or you've been spending, years really digging into it, understanding how it works at a technical level. Or on the other end, it's, today you might have $100, next week you might have 50, right? And those are two very big problems that really put off your average consumer and anybody who's trying to get work done with this technology. So by abstracting it, we allow users to log in with their socials, click buttons in the UI UX, right? Go through in real life flows that they normally do when they do word of mouth referrals, but digitally with structure, right? With process built in. And where blockchain really plays the biggest part today is, as Rick mentioned, in kind of the payments and gig automation aspects. So, once you're once you've gotten a couple of, people referred to you for a certain gig that you've posted on our platform, you find one that you really like to work with, you're able to, lock in with them and deposit funds in an escrow account, right? That happens today with Cash App and Venmo. And the next few months, once New York State gets its regulation straightened out, we'll also have credit and debit cards. So, and that's all kind of on the immediate horizon. And, subsequently, once those funds are deposited, like I said, there's buttons in the UI that trigger next steps in that resolution flow. And ultimately, if there's a dispute, right, we're also able to really initiate this kind of customized dispute resolution system where we eliminate the need for small claims court, so people really having disagreements over payments and work performed, but also really get rid of delays because of customer service. And a lot of these big organizations, like if something happens bad to you on Fiverr, you send an email to their customer support team, they're not going to get back to you realistically within a couple of weeks. Maybe they'll never get back to you ever. But in our case, we really bring in the dot connector, right? The individual that made the connection is set to earn this commission from that work they've done from a relationship standpoint to really mediate and arbitrate, right? If you were to set up two of your friends for, to work together and there was a disagreement or a problem, where are they going to come back? They're going to come to you first, right? And we just use the highly customizability of blockchain to mimic that kind of behavior and also benefit from having, lower fees than everybody on the market and really having confidence that when jobs are done, that money is going to your wallet. It's not held by Stripe. It's not held by PayPal. It's not like they can say, hey, like actually your account is flagged. We're not going to pay you this quarter, right? You earn the money, you get to cash out straight to your bank account. And it's the way freelancing should truly work. It's almost like handing over cash digitally with structure. In the future, we have a mission as the world's first social utility network, or referral driven social and professional network. We want to make all of our users stakeholders. by issuing a community token that unlocks premium access, network influence, and a bunch of other, benefits that we're going to be really implementing over the next couple of years. And the last thing I'd say to that, just to, avoid confusion, because tokens are at times an ambiguous concept. We really what's important about a token is it's kind of the blockchain equivalent of a stock option in a startup, right? When you're an employee at a startup, you get some kind of interest that's beyond just your cash compensation. We're effectively doing the same thing and rewarding our early users from being participants by being passionate about our product and ultimately, helping the people around them.
Amazing. So what makes Vouch different from, other existing platforms or other ways that people are kind of, finding potential, talent or people for gigs and stuff?
Sure. So there's actually quite a few different ways that we like to highlight. First off, our fees are like half, a little bit less than half the amount that's charged by like Upwork, Fiverr, TaskRabbit, etc. Upwork, Fiverr, TaskRabbit all charge the requester as well. So the person putting up the request has to pay the fees.
Right, like Indeed charges the person that's posting the job
So you're
description.
paying extra on top of what you're willing to pay, right? On our platform, instead, you say how much you're willing to pay, and then we take out a percentage, 5% to the recommender and 3% to the platform, right? Out of the payment that goes to the gig worker. So in total, it's 8% compared to like 15 or more in other traditional platforms. Differences between us and a couple other ones like that I wanted to highlight besides like just um the like fees structure is that on Upwork or Fiverr, let's say you get the best out of the platform, but the best out of the platform isn't actually the best. It's whoever got the most reviews over time, right? Like it's people that like have been doing this for maybe 5 years, but maybe their quality of work has gone down or like things like that, right? And something that we try to really focus on is trying to be focused towards like local introduction. So who is the best in your network that we can bring in that can actually like do the best work for you because they want to up their resume or kind of like help themselves get more gigs. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'll pass to Dimi for a couple any other things.
Yeah, I would say what we really in kind of the context of our competition, I think ultimately what we prioritize first and foremost is also being focused on a market that's been long underserved, right? The reality of the fact is that LinkedIn is built for white collar professionals, it's built for tech people, it's built for consultants, for the for the vast majority of how
For
life.
me and my friends.
Yeah. And, obviously we have profiles by merit of our background, but for a lot of creatives, LinkedIn doesn't really reflect the best version of that resume that Rick is talking about, right? It's about accumulating project experience over time and having the ability to understand that, hey, like I'm a byproduct of all my experiences and people should be able to value me based on that. Moreover, as a dot connector, right? These individuals don't usually have any recourse or any kind of recording of what have they done for their community? Where have they been put in? Who have they connected that has resulted in a certain project, right? And we want to also bring that to the table, right? Your resume is not just the practical work you do with your hands, it's also the work that you commission out, it's also the dots you connect, all these different aspects. So we believe that by making Vouch truly a creative gig economy, so focused network, so fashion, film, content, music, visual arts, what have you, and all the businesses, and really catering to all the businesses that rely on that kind of talent, we really set the stage for a future where there's tracking of network influence aside from also the projects that are being performed and the outcomes of those projects. So really, I guess in summary, cheaper, faster, less centralized, less other people holding your money, and ultimately a better indication and representation of the resume and the ability of the creative in the context of society today.
Yeah, and I think, a nice point to end on that is that, the curated nature of it, right? It's not just like Fiverr or anyone could say they're a graphic designer and now they're a graphic designer, right? Like you have to have a certain level of credentials and credibility and portfolio to even be considered, right? And I think that is a big thing, especially in these creative entertainment spaces where it's like you don't want someone that's never done this before, doesn't know how to, you know, deal with a photo shoot, doesn't know how to deal with deadlines, doesn't know that if you're submitting an album cover, you need to have certain different sizes that have, you know, the metric, you know, DPI that is going to be good on Spotify and Apple Music and all these, you know, DSPs. So there's just certain inherent information that people that are within these industries know. So that becomes a real, you know, factor. And I think something that's, you know, unique from other stuff where, you know, like you said, you only really know what, you know, the eBay ratings are of these people, right? Like great work, fast, A++, like that doesn't tell you as much, right? More of the other people they're working with. And I think, you know, the element that you guys have started to touch on that we can go into a little bit more is, you know, the whole vouching thing, right? These dot connectors that are saying, hey, this guy's great, you should check him out, right? Like that adds another level that nothing else really has.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out, like, specifically that idea of accountability is what's most important, right? Like, by making that introduction, you're taking on certain risk in general. I kind of mentioned this earlier, and that risk has never really been rewarded, right? Like, so really making it so that everyone has a stake in the success of that gig. And like also kind of going back to like what Demi was saying, like with TaskRabbit, Fiverr, whatever, if you have a problem, you go to them. How are they going to know what happened there? Right? We want to kind of keep
Yeah,
it
like,
three people
yeah,
that
like,
actually did the gig to figure out like what went wrong here. And if someone gets mad or something goes wrong, who's going to get hurt by that? The person in the middle anyways. They should be the one who's helping them resolve it. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of mirroring that IRL factor just digitally.
yeah, because I feel like even when I've had issues with DoorDash or, you know, I had a client that had issues with Airbnb and it was like you're dealing with like a random chat bot on like the app and it's like that's not actually going to resolve anything, you know, like the DoorDasher didn't bring my food or left it, you know, 50 floors away from me. Like,
Try to make as many steps as possible for you to not talk to someone, right? And that's
exactly.
kind of the exact opposite of us. We want you connected to someone immediately, someone that knows what happened and that can help you get to the solution.
Nice. So, is there kind of a way to judge or rank the vouchers? You know, some leaderboard or you know how many referrals and successful, right? It's like I want to know my batting average, right? If I'm batting 100% on my referrals to payouts, you know, is that something that we're looking into?
So I mean, there's a lot to it, right? First off, it's about how much have you earned. Like that, things like that will be visible in terms of like our best recommenders. There will be ratings, right? Every rating or every review that we have on the platform is tied to a specific gig that was completed. So there's no like Google reviews type thing where you can just write a review for whatever and you just have to trust that that person went there. No, we actually have a tied request to everything. So you can see, okay, is this person actually like vouching in good faith? Have they done a good job in the past? Are they involved or are they hands off? That's something else that you can kind of see from the reviews, right? People could be like, oh, this person was super helpful, blah, blah, blah. So then taking it a step further, let's say we find the creme de la creme in terms of like the vouchers. We really want to highlight those people because they're doing great work for connecting the people in our platform. And actually, one of the features that Demi kind of mentioned that we're going to be working on the crypto side of things and just it in general, like I guess value making in our platform is having a curated network of vouchers, right? That have proven themselves to be really good over and over and over again. Where if you're someone that's joining, and let's say you live somewhere that's like kind of remote, and maybe you don't have that many people in your network, like, but you want to get connected, and the work that you need is kind of it can be remote. Then these people can serve as your connectors for whatever you need, so that you know that oh, okay, well this person will also be in the middle if anything goes wrong. They can help me kind of figure it out with this like
So like
high
a power seller kind of thing,
exactly,
almost.
exactly. Yeah. So at that point, you're like, you can kind of pay for those intros or for that way in if you have no other way around. And that's something that we're trying to do to empower people with like less social capital.
Yeah, and I
Like,
would say in addition to that, that same feature is also focused on, premium users. So our partners that we're building with that want to believe that every single one of their clients is going to get connected to the best of the best. If Rick and I don't do it right, it's going to be our community of curated dot connectors that have that track record of of success, of facilitating these kind of introductions that end up in gigs where everybody's always walking away happy. And in addition, something in the distant future, or maybe not so distant future at this point, but really introducing an idea of like a vouch score or something that we've played around with, right? In a way that it's like, hey, if you're a contributing member, regardless of your role, regardless of somebody that you're coming in to work with new people, whether you're connecting the dots or whether or not you're just fulfilling gigs or doing all three at the same time, there should be some form of accreditation aside from that resume that perhaps influences how the network sees you. Not the same way as, paid verified tags on like Twitter or Instagram, because in reality, those don't really do as much as they should. But
Or
some
anymore. They don't mean nothing anymore.
Used to, but not anymore. Yeah, you just pay your way through.
exactly. So really, kind of the idea of a social performance and social help score that is actually valuable and influences your behavior and your position within our community.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about the growth, any moments that stand out to you as you've kind of, gone on this voyage building the company.
It's been quite a journey, I would say. Obviously, the biggest, most recent milestone was our launch to our initial waitlist and community back in August of this year. Traction out of the gate has been pretty promising, and we're excited for what's coming up. We regularly see people transacting. We've had like multiple or more transactions every single month, up to like 5 or 6 in a month as well too. So really building that up within this kind of curated initial community. We had the option of going public and just kind of releasing it to the broader internet. We felt like that would really damage the value proposition up front, where trust, verified, vetted talent, and curation is just essential. So I would say that was obviously a very big moment. But this entire summer that's passed really kind of shined a light on who we are, who the people around us are. We had 5 successful community productions where we were able to essentially place every single talent on stage, behind the scenes, um, from our community. There were people that were like wanted to showcase their talent in whatever form and kind of contribute to this collective vision of, hey, we can do all this together and really win together. And that was a really exciting moment right before we launched the app and right after we launched the app that really kind of set the stage, in my opinion, for a lot of that early behavior where people were like, oh man, like I was part of something you did, right? Something we did together. You know, I can use this product too. It's going to help me in the same exact way. We really kind of focus on building on natural human behaviors and natural human excitement within every facet of our distribution and product strategies, because you can't make something in this world that feels out of place. People inevitably vouch as a new concept, digitally at least. So we can't overcomplicate that. We really have to focus on what works in real life and how can we embody it on the internet.
So I guess like from the technical side, like Demi said, when it, having worked on it for about 8 months, like behind closed doors, it was just like, and 8 months like full time, we were just testing in the development environment, finally putting it out and getting people in there, and people are actually putting up requests. And like Demi said, like transactions are going through the blockchain from people that have never transacted on blockchain. That was crazy to see, right? Like that thesis coming to life, like in front of our eyes. And then also, I think one other thing that was kind of surprising, but like in a good way, was the invites. People are actually excited to bring people in. Like right now, our invite numbers are doing really well. I think partly due to our closed beta like approach to everything. Remember, like Clubhouse, everybody wanted to get into
Yeah,
Clubhouse.
that was awesome.
We're not trying to do the same FOMO where it's like, oh, you can't get in, but it's more like, hey, we want to make sure that it's like really talented people on there, and that like if you're getting in here to hire, we've like handpicked these people from our events or from just like other situations that we've met them, and really tried to make the best of it. And just I guess seeing that buy-in in terms of like people coming back to the app, people inviting friends, etc., has been very exciting because it's like it feels like we've understood them, you know?
Yeah, let's kind of talk about how, to use the app. So how would an individual talent or creator use it, and, what benefits does it provide them?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of different ways to look at it, and that's the roles that I was talking about before. So in our app, there's kind of 3 different roles. There's a requester who is putting up a request for something that they need. There's a voucher who's making the introduction, and then there's the vouchee or gig worker who's actually completing the gig, right? So
Can the vouchee directly go with the requester, or do they need the voucher in the middle?
They need the voucher in the middle because that's part of what we're trying to build here, that
Okay.
trust network, right? So, but if you do see a gig that's good for you, you can click I'm interested. There's a button for you to click that basically gives a bat signal to all of your friends saying, hey, this is a good gig for me. Could you vouch for me? And they can choose to vouch for you in those cases as well. So the idea is, as a requester, you can find better collaborators, right? Let's say you're like a musician that money's tight. You need that cover art to be done right the first time. You can't afford a second one. That's like what we're here for. Like we can get you someone that someone's putting their name in between, being like, yes, this person's really good. And they will try to help you to make sure that everything goes well. From the voucher perspective, every creative makes these introductions every day, right? But they just don't get paid. So it's another like income stream basically for creatives who are very well connected, who maybe play that doc connector role in the industry in the first place. They're maybe not the most front facing people, but they make the things happen behind the scenes. And we all know someone that's kind of like that. And then lastly, for the gig workers, I mean, you're just getting passive gigs, right? You're having a friend be like, you're having your friend group basically be your promotion group. They're telling people about how good you are at your services. And I think another interesting use case that has come out of the like gig workers specifically is gig workers that have new clients that they want to work with, right? That they don't necessarily trust because they haven't worked with them before, but they think it might go well, but they want some kind of security. Like, can I make sure that I'll get my money in the end? And that's something that we've really seen stick with our gig workers is that if you bring in your new clients in, you're giving up a small percentage to the person who made the introduction happen, but there's someone in the middle that you know who made that vouch happen who will be there in case something goes wrong. And the payment is being held in that contract safe, so we know that the person can't just run away and ghost you, which is one of the biggest problems that we see all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot of benefits that you guys, as you mentioned, as a business being able to kind of look for people to fill in dots, right? Like if you're in another city or you're in a pinch, someone gets sick or can't come in, being able to find people that are able to fill these dots on a short notice is, essential, right? Has anyone done any live events, any productions? Things happen, right? Day of show, the lighting guys miss their train and they're not making it in time. And it's like, okay, well, we need lighting guys. What do we do? And, from the other side of being a creator, like you're looking for opportunities, right? But like you said, you don't want to be like, hey, this is what I do and just put it up on the internet, right? Anyone could respond to you. You don't know if you're actually going to get paid. Like it's a problem. And, then from the dot connector is, I always kind of feel like no good deed ever goes unpunished, right? Like anytime you connect with something goes wrong and it's like, Justin, the photographer that you showed me did a horrible job and I don't want to pay him. And it's like,
Everyone gets
I wish I didn't connect that, and it's like, that becomes a whole nother thing where you feel like you're putting your name out there, helping someone out, and they don't realize that you're helping them out and that this is you, putting your name out there or, essentially vouching for it, right? That's the perfect word where it's like you're co-signing it. So I think that now you have the ability to, okay, well, at least if I'm dealing with these hassles, I'm at least going to get paid off of it, right? Like,
Yeah. Just making it more worth your time. Because I think we all want to do it, but often we're just like, like, you know what I mean? That just feeling of like, oh, I would, but I'm so busy right now. There's so much stuff that can happen. I don't know if I want to do that. Or I don't know if I want to affect my reputation. That's another thing, right? So like giving you some kind of levies or pulleys to like kind of pull on in terms of the engagement rather than just kind of making it happen and hoping that it goes well is something that a lot of people are excited about.
definitely. So what kind of mistakes did you guys make along the way and how were you able to kind of, overcome and, pivot as you were growing?
I mean, at the end of the day, when you're an early stage startup, is anything a mistake? I think it's truly more of a mission of iterating on stuff that's underperformed and perhaps hasn't really fallen into the exact space that you wanted, right? I can definitely say that early on, naivete is something that influences a lot of different approaches, whether it's from, hey, how do we build this, or who can we work with, or how can we approach this specific customer? You need a lot of research at the end of the day. You need to go through a lot of conversations. You need to go through a lot of practical experiences where you see what works and doesn't work before you really get to that point. I don't think we've had a mistake in the sense that we've done something and now we're like, oh man, we really dropped the ball there, right? I would say that we definitely experienced a couple of hurdles during our journey where some information was perhaps misrepresented to us, right? Whether that was on the product blockchain side or whether or not that was a new business relationship that was approached in a very straightforward way, but suddenly, took on a life of its own after work was actually being performed. But then again, those are things that really allowed us to understand and really excel today. So I wouldn't, to that extent, I would say that the we've we've constantly iterated on what's underperformed. But at the I can say, we wish that advertisements were a little bit better, that could work. We
I
really thought that there was a virality at times to certain forms of content, but platforms like TikTok doesn't like the fact that we like to
No,
use.
it costs you a lot of money to go viral.
Yeah, and they don't like the word earn, right? For example, or anything that has to do with like compensation, right? So these,
they block reach a lot in those cases, like overall.
yeah.
So you have to kind of test and see what works.
Interesting.
But again, that's not something that's hampered us today. And at the end of the day, we built around the places that worked because of that TikTok, situation. We pivoted to Threads, and now Threads is a platform that really, works well for us because of the situation with the kind of a specific part of the blockchain integration and somebody back in like March of this year that told us they can do something and they didn't. We ultimately ended up engineering a solution by ourselves that was viable, that allowed us to really launch this product as soon as possible, right? And those are just like two examples, right, at the end of the day. But this whole journey since the start has been, littered with a ton of these different sort of small situations. But what I'd say is I'm proud of how we've come out of that and where the momentum is today, because it surely wouldn't have been like this if we didn't go through all those different hurdles.
I'd say they're learnings, not mistakes. That's
Yeah.
like the shortest way I would put it is like, I think also we're pretty young. So I think a lot of things is just like not knowing what you don't know and then you learn it along the way. And like, I feel like the place that we're at right now is a much, much different place than we were at like a year ago, from all sides.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? It's like as right Bob Ross says, there's no mistakes, there's only happy accidents, right? You're figuring it out, and you think one way and ends up being the other way, and that's what business is, right? And being able to evolve based on how things evolve, that's how you succeed. So you're really just kind of dealing with what every other entrepreneur deals with, right? Is the market being the market and evolving as you need to. So what's some advice you have for anyone trying to, work as a creative entrepreneur, starting their own business like this, something you would go back to yourself, months ago and be like, this is what you got to look out for.
I think one thing is picking the right person to work with. Like, I think our team, like, I had been kind of trying to work on Vouch for a little bit, like, while at school, but it wasn't really, like, priority. And once Demi and I linked up, it was just, like, the right duo to get it done. And that kind of really supercharged. Like, I knew that doing it solo, something as big as this, like, was not going to be the right way to do it. You need kind of a little bit more brain power all in the same room. So that's definitely one thing. Like pick the right co-founder. Pick someone that has like uh complementary skills to yourself. I think you also end up seeing a lot of founders that have the same skills and like our
Yin yang, right? The
industry.
yin to the yang. You need
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So that's definitely one thing. I would say hire people with intention, and I think that can mean all kinds of things, right? Like uh I think early on before raising money, like there was a couple of situations where we tried to work with certain people, but if you're not paying people, it's a little bit harder to get their buy-in early, right? So like you really
Mhm.
need to kind of sell a mission and sell like what is the point of this? Because you're going to still pay them. That's not the point isn't to get free labor. The point is more like, look, this is for right now. Let's get this mission done, and this is what's coming for you as well, right? And that's something that like someone just needs to be at the right place in the right time to actually be able to commit to that. And I think really addressing that first thing and really thinking about it, okay, this looks nice right now, but if I think out like in a year or 2 years, like how does this really pan out? is something that's very important too. So similar to like founding people, it's also like people that you work with in terms of employees are also the DNA of your company, right? So it's very important to pick the right people there.
It kind of builds on, your previous question of what are the mistakes or learnings that really kind of influenced where you are today. It's really to approach things with one, having talked to as many people as possible and really tried to understand the mindset of the people that you are selling to, right? Or that you are providing to. Doesn't matter if you're an artist that's trying to figure like that is trying to make their way and influence a certain audience of music listeners that are compatible with your genre, or you're a agency owner that's trying to work with certain brands, or whether you're, a tech entrepreneur that's trying to build for a specific market. I think the more you're able to have unbiased, in-depth conversations, really focusing on pain points, what makes people get up in the morning, why are they excited, what's their favorite part of their day, and really understanding those points and building around them is what makes a successful product or a successful vision really happen. Because at the end of the day, we are so oversaturated in terms of products and services out there. And if you're not building for somebody specific in mind, then at the end of the day, they're not going to feel that like emotional connection to your product. And that's why we also focus on media. And that's why we also focus on events in addition to our app. And we have an ambassador program and why we're exploring partnerships, right? At the end of the day, all of that drives that human buy-in, understanding, and really building a product around your target users. And I think that's something, regardless of what career path you're trying to chase, or rather whatever kind of business you're trying to build, it is a necessary prerequisite to really go through those learnings moments and iteration a lot more successfully. Because otherwise you might get to a point where you need to iterate and pivot and take the next step in a different direction because whatever happened. But if you don't know what the foundation of that reason is, why that's the case, then you're kind of stuck in the mud.
In the shortest way, I would just put it, it's empathy, right? Building a company is empathy and understanding like who are you building for. And I think even if you're building even if you're selling like tomato sauce, like your packaging needs to appeal to the people that you're trying to sell to, right? So in something like what we're trying to build, I think it's even more important to really understand the deep mission, right? Of what do these creatives need? What do they want right now and what are they missing?
Definitely. Well, amazing advice to everyone out there. Definitely take note. I agree. Building your team and who you bring in is, essential to success or failure. And so what's the future for Vouch app? Where are we going here, in the long term as well in the near future?
I think 2025 is going to be a pretty interesting year, to say the least. I think on our immediate horizon, we're really thinking about our next kind of round of capital, really to not only we've built a pretty solid base in New York, but we want to expand past that, right? Miami, Atlanta, LA are all geographies where there's a lot of network synergies and a lot of presence of our target market that experience the same type of problems. And we've had the benefit of going to those places and really interacting with individuals there to validate that. So I would say that's something that we're super excited of. By the end of the year, potentially even taking that next step to public launch, right? And really expanding the platform to a broader audience where there is no need for kind of the clubhouse style invites, but at the same time having those premium features that still keep that curation value really high and keep the ability to tap into the top talent without really risking it at times, right? If you're new to something, or have that kind of limited network that Rick was talking about. So I'd say those are, a few things that we're excited about.
The idea of groups is something that I'm very excited about us potentially building for. So this is going to come probably around the time of public launch, maybe a little bit after, but just the idea of like gatekeeping sometimes occurs because people want to help others like their own, right? Like let's say like crypto people, there's like certain groups, let's say NFT groups like Bored Apes or Azukis or whatever, they all want to help out each other within that 10,000 person community. Or like another great example I've seen is like one of our ambassadors is a part of a Black Excellence Network. And it makes perfect sense that they'd want to keep that like a small group of people that have been vetted that they want to kind of keep helping push forward. So I think that idea of like similar, like groups of similar people that want to help each other out is something that's really important, that's going to kind of flourish within the platform and also help onboard those groups, right? As if, let's say, a couple of people from that group start using the platform and they start inviting that whole group, the group wants to just bring their business over because it's one place to do everything. So that's something that we're excited about. I would say bringing Web3 to the masses without them feeling the pains is really important. So like Dimi mentioned, like you click buttons and you don't have to sign transactions anymore. That's something that, like, let's say my musician friends wouldn't understand if I'm like that. If I explained it to them, sure, but it's going to take so long that they're going to lose interest because they have other things to do, right? So again, empathy, right? What would they do if they were in these shoes? So taking out like the need for a wallet, taking out the need for signing transactions, et cetera, is really making Web3 like spoon feedable to anyone, like to a grandma even, you know what I mean? Like, and really leveling up that spread of the industry.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like there's some amazing stuff on the horizon. I'm really excited to see as it grows and expands over the coming months and years. So thank you so much for joining us, and tell everybody where they can find you guys and, find Vouch and learn more.
Yeah, so we're Vouch Social on Instagram, but most importantly, check out our app. So you can actually see the app on vouch-app.com. And from there, it will take you to the actual app. You can sign up for the waitlist if you're not on it, or ask a friend that's on the platform already to invite you, or reach out to us and we can get you in as well. So if you sign up for our waitlist, we check that on a regular basis. If you look like a good fit, we'll be letting you in as well.
Or just click Justin's personal ambassador link below.
Yes, check it out in the description of the YouTube video. We'll have a link, for anyone to check it out and see what it's about. Love to have everyone, look for gigs, post gigs, really get it going and being part of the community. And, thanks everybody again for tuning in, and to our sponsor Vouch. We're really excited about, where we're going. So make sure everyone to follow me on Twitter, Justin JESQ, and Instagram, same name, and check YouTube for all our past episodes.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Excited to see where this all goes.